Coming up next, Miss Lelia Lewis, Building a Better You.
Hi, I'm Lelia Lewis, and welcome to a new year, new beginnings, and maybe even new priorities. Now, these are things that are necessary when we come into a new year. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to be reading from 3 different books of the Bible. We're going to be reading from the book of James, the book of John, and the book of Psalms. And the reason I chose that was because these 3, they seem to go together. And after we get into it, you'll see the connection. And it's going to be based on temptations, trials and temptations. Trials and temptations, these are things we're going to have all the time. They're not going to go away. But I think the first thing we need to know is the difference between a trial and a temptation. Now, a trial is a test. It could be a test of faith. It could be a test of patience, stamina, endurance, anything that's testing you, that's putting you, anything that's subjecting you to maybe some kind of suffering or something. That's a test. But a trial is also, how do I put, it's the result of something we did, or maybe the result of something that somebody else did to you. But it's also something that you've accepted when you should have rejected it. So that was your trial. Should I not? But you should have rejected it, but you said, well, that's not so bad, so you accepted it. That's a trial. Now, a temptation, and that the definition of temptation is to be enticed to do something wrong, enticed to step out of the will of God. Sometimes even when you know it, you know it's wrong, but it doesn't seem so bad because you're being enticed. You could be enticed by all kinds of things: money, prestige, position. There's a whole lot of things. And the main culprit is money. And that's not just now. That's been going on forever. Way back in the biblical days, there was temptation. There was always enticement. Example, Delilah and Samson. Samson and Delilah. A lot of you know the story. Samson's strength was in his hair. So God told him and his mother, don't let him cut his hair. His strength is in his hair. And she told him, you can never cut your hair. That's where your strength. He was the strongest of strong. He could fight off armies by himself. That was his gift. But what happened? He met up with Delilah. He fell for Delilah. But the soldiers wanted Samson because he was so strong. They wanted to get rid of Samson, but they didn't know where his strength came from. So they tempted Delilah with gold and silver. All you have to do, they said, is find out where his strength comes from. We just want to know. And of course, she saw the riches and she got it. Okay. So what did she do? She enticed or tempted Samson with herself. And she got him to tell her that his strength was in his hair. And yes, she went back and told the soldiers, because what was she thinking about? The money, the gold, the silver. I'm going to be rich. And they came and they took, while he was sleeping, she cut off his hair so that when the soldiers came, he jumped up to fight them, but he had no strength. And when he saw them give her the gold and silver, he knew he had been betrayed. So he was betrayed by Delilah. She wanted riches. That's one example. And the other one I thought of was Judas Iscariot. Remember how he betrayed Jesus? The soldiers told him, well, all we want to do is talk to him. We just want to learn and understand his way. Just tell us where he is. Tell us where Jesus is. We'll give you 30 pieces of silver. Okay, what did he do? He led them right to Jesus in Gethsemane. And they took Jesus. And he got his 30 pieces of silver. But the betrayal was, he betrayed Jesus by bringing them to him. And they betrayed him by saying they weren't going to hurt him. They just wanted to talk. But what did they want to do? They wanted to crucify him. So both these instances show you back then how temptation, how being enticed by the wrong thing can get you in the wrong place. Because in the end, nobody won out. Because Samson, he got his strength back and he brought down the temple, and the temple, everybody was killed, including Delilah, including himself. And in Judas Iscariot, he didn't win, because after he realized they were going to crucify Jesus, he felt so guilty, he went out and hung himself. So that accomplished nothing. So what we're going to talk about today is patience. Patience in the sight of temptation. When you're stepping out of the will of God into temptation, let's see how patience can help prevent that. And we're going to start with the book of James. And I'm going to just read a few verses, and then we're going to go back and review it. So I'm going to read from chapter 1. And I'm only going to read verse 2 through 8, and then we're going to come back and go over that. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, God that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, not wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Now let's just go back and see exactly what that's saying, and we got to think about this. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptation. Well, let's say, well, what are divers? Well, divers simply means various. It could be any number, 2, 3, 4, various temptations. They could come to you from all angles. You know how stuff just seems to happen all at one time? That's what they're talking about. Various angles, different people trying to get you to do this and trying to get you to do that. I mean, and the temptation, of course, that means, like we said, to be enticed to do something wrong. But it says, count it all joy. Count it all joy. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Now, I just want to stop a minute there. And even as we spoke about temptations and just a few minutes ago from the biblical standpoint, how about I'm thinking today, in today's age, and I saw on the news about the guy, what's his name, Sam Bankman-Fried, the young guy. He's 30 years old. He was the guy that started that cryptocurrency thing, the FTX. He was only 30, but he started telling people how they could just make all this money. Oh, all you have to do is invest in this, and it's going to turn over, and by next year this time, you'll have double your money, and you can get a 15% interest gain. And he went on and on and on. And believe it or not, he was 30. He started this FTX currency in 2019. And here it is. He got celebrities, he got athletes, he got people that were really rich, even companies. They were listening to him. Well, what is cryptocurrency? That would have been my first question. But they listened to the part about how much and how fast they could make the money. That's all they heard. Now me, when I heard 15% gain, I'm like, wow, how's that going to happen? But they all gave thousands, and I mean thousands of dollars. Millions a couple of people gave. A couple of companies gave millions. But today, 3 years later, where is Sam? Well, he's arrested. He's here. He did all this out of Jamaica, out of the Bahamas. Made up another company called Alameda Research, and he just had things going on, and these people were just feeding into it. That was their temptation. They were enticed by money. Now today he's in jail and declared bankruptcy, and they're out of millions of dollars. So I say all that to say we're going to learn how to recognize when people try to get over on you. You've got to think beyond the surface, beyond what they're talking about. They're only going to tell you what sounds good, but you've got to learn how to delve into it. So that's what the divers are. That's the various angles that people come at you. And the temptations, like we said, in this particular case, is all about money. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. So what we're saying today is, if somebody approaches you like that, for any reason, no matter how they try to entice you, you've got to think about it and pray on it. You don't just jump up and say, oh, that sounds good. Okay, I'll give it a try. That's where your faith and trust in God comes. Now you've got to pray about it, meditate on it, and think on it. But then after you do that, you've got to have patience. You've got to be able to wait. Wait on God to give you an answer without complaint. Be steadfast in your position. Don't be dissuaded. Don't let them dissuade you. You think about it. You meditate on it. But let patience have her perfect work. And that means be patient and let it work out. Let God show you what the route is that you need to take. Because then you may be perfect and entire. And entire simply means complete, wanting for nothing. And if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God. And we know wisdom is in-depth insight. We spoke about wisdom many times. Wisdom, knowledge, learning, education. This is what we need to understand what people are saying. And if you need wisdom, it's telling you right here, ask God. And all we said was talking to God, have a conversation. Because God gives to all men liberally. And liberally means generously, abundantly. God always gives us abundance in blessings, in favor, in mercy, in grace. Always. and unbraideth not. And to unbraid means to scold. So it says he's not going to scold you or criticize you or find fault with you. He's just going to forgive you and guide you. Ask and it shall be given unto you. But, verse 6 says, let him ask in faith, not wavering. So in faith means trust and belief. You've got to have your loyalties to God and trust and believe that he's going to take care of that for you. And to waver means to sway back and forth and be wishy-washy. No, you can't be with God today. And, well, I trust God. And then tomorrow, because nothing happened, I don't know, maybe I better do this. That's being wavering back and forth. And it says, I'm going to skip down to verse 8, I'm sorry. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Double-minded. Unstable. That means wishy-washy, just like we said. Unstable is readily changing, never consistent, never knowing what you're going to do next. We can't worship God and be unstable. Now we're going to move on to the next portion, which is John 15. This is going to show you the connection. The connection. Because this is under the heading of Jesus, the true vine. And I'm going to read verses 1 through 5, and we're going to discuss that. This is going to show you the connection. John chapter 15, verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth fruit, not beareth fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye except ye abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. So simply, let's go back. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Well, first you want to say, well, what is the husbandman? And the husbandman is the man of soil. And this was a Greek and Hebrew term that was used way back then. And that's how they made the term husbandman, because farming was one of the most ancient and honorable occupations, because sowing the seed and the harvesting and the other field work. So that's how they used the term husbandman. As in the family, the husband, he raises up the family. So we're going to use this as our, how I'm going to say, imagine a tree. Let's do it this way. Imagine a tree. Now the tree has to what? Be sown. The seed has to be sown. And it has to be hard. Everything has to go through the process. So everything starts in the soil, and that's why they said man of soil. Everything starts in the soil. So a tree, it starts in the soil, the tree comes up, the trunk comes up, up. That's the Father. That's the strength of the tree. So that's what Jesus is saying. But he's a vine on the tree. So once the tree comes up, now the vines come out. And we are the branches. We are the branches. Because anything, all branches that bear fruit will bear fruit. But he purgeth any that do not. That means any branches that aren't, producing any fruit, they wither and they die off. So that's why he says, abide in me and I in you. Because it says here, branches cannot bear fruit of itself, except they abide on the vine. So he's saying we can't do anything without being attached. We've got to be attached to Jesus. So we're attached to Jesus. He's attached to the Father. That's how the tree grows and is fruitful. That's how we become fruitful from the Father, from the Son, and we are bearing their fruit. That's why verse 5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth fruit. So that means we bring forth fruit. All right, now I'm going to go down to verse 11. And it says, these things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. And joy is a calm delight. It's an emotion that, you feel great pleasure in. And joy is not, it's not a status. It's not being successful. It's not what other people think about you. And it doesn't mean you have to have a lot of joy. It's just the fact that you're joyful in the Lord. You're joyful in the Lord. And that joy will last forever and ever. And we're going to skip over to Psalm 16. And I'm going to go over this for a minute. And this is the conclusion of how joy is in God's presence. And it says, preserve me, O God, for in thee I put my trust. And to preserve means to keep me safe from harm, to protect me, to guard me. I put my trust in you. I'm assured, relying on your ability, your strength. The Lord can only give you the strength. The Lord can only give you ability. You've got to trust in him. He's all we have. And verse 5 says, the Lord is the portion of mine inheritance, and of my cup thou maintainest my lot. The Lord is my portion. That means he's my share. He gives us our inheritance. He gives us our inheritance for us and the next generation. He maintains my lot. And to maintain means to preserve, to uphold. The lot means your way of life. The fortunes that he gives us, the things that he gives us, the blessings he gives us, these are all our life. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is my right hand, and I shall not be moved. Nobody comes between you and the Lord. Don't ever think a person can give you what God can give you. And the last verse is 11, and it says, thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy. At the right hand there are pleasures forevermore. The path of life in his presence. And the presence is a spirit. It's something you feel. You feel the warmth of God, the closeness of God. God gives us favor and blessings every single day. Every day. So now that brings me to the poem I'd like to share with you. And it's called Heavy with Favor. Each day we wake up is a blessing. He watches us all the day long. He constantly guides and protects us, even when we're doing wrong. Sometimes he has to scold us to get us to see things his way. But going through trials we may not understand is a minimal price to pay. He wants our life here to be fruitful, full of happiness, joy, and content. But always remember that by doing his will is a valuable time well spent. God showers us with favor when we don't even know he's there. How he gives us second chances, some of which we aren't even aware. So just keep on thanking him daily for his patience, mercy, and grace, and know that all the favor he shows can never bring replaced. God's favor brings us joy. Joy is a focus. It's a focus before it's a feeling. I mean, you focus on something and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel, if you're focusing, even on your kids sometimes, you look at them and you just feel so happy and you just smile. Joy is a feeling. So if you're trusting and believing and feeling God's presence, that's where the joy comes in. That is the joy. It's a difference between a choice and a consequence. Because a choice is something you make on your own free will, right? So you choose to love your kids, and that gives you joy. You choose to do a favor for somebody. That gives you joy. A consequence, a consequence is a result from an action or something previously committed. So if you do something on the spur of the moment and then 20 minutes later you realize, wow, I shouldn't have done that. Now you're paying the consequence because you didn't focus. All these people I spoke about that were betrayed, they didn't focus. All they were thinking about was the money. All they were thinking about was money. So it begot them nothing. So that's why I'm going to ask you now, what brings joy to you if you focus on it? I know our kids, well, most of the time. But think about something that really, even something that God did for you. It could have been a year ago. I could think of 2 or 3 things right now. Don't have time to share them. But I know they're there. And every day I think about them sometimes. And I look back. And I was like, wow, that was really wonderful. That was really wonderful. So be grateful for what you have. Don't be looking at what somebody else has or trying to do a comparison thing. We don't have to do that. Because now when I asked you what you should focus on, I already had a generic answer. And I was saying it should be the life that you have. Because you don't need to be comparing it with somebody else. That's where you lose focus on your own blessing. Because you're too busy looking at what somebody else has. So the moral of that is focus on what you have. Don't do comparisons and be grateful. Because there's always somebody who would be glad to have what you do have. And you're chucking it off like it's no big deal and complaining about it. Be grateful. Be grateful every day. And my closing words are, you can't choose your joy, but you can choose your priorities, because they will control your joy. And until next time, I'm Lelia Lewis. Have a marvelous new year, and we'll see you again next week to build a better you. Thanks for joining me.